Welcome to Hear These Words, a podcast from Good Shepherd Episcopal Church in Tequesta, Florida. My name is David Dixon, and I am the Director of Youth and Family Ministries here at the church. And we are joined today, or I am joined today, with some members from our church staff, some of the best people in the world to ever be able to work together with. And they're going to be participating. Everybody kind of wave and say hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
So, Hear These Words is a podcast where we provide some commentary, some background information on the texts coming up for the Sunday service to hopefully help all of us be better prepared for that service and hearing the words of the Lord. And so, this week for Christmas Day, December 25th, the words we hear are from Isaiah chapter 9, verses 2 through 7, Psalm 96, Titus chapter 2, verses 11 through 14, and Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 14, and possibly the extended verses 15 through 20. Well, hello, everyone. How are you doing?
We're good.
Good. Doing great. Full of the joys of Christmas.
I can see that. You got your hat on and everything. It's hard to believe that we're already at Christmas Day. I mean, the year has gone by so fast, and a new one's about to start. So, it's kind of like ready or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have several services that we provide here at the church for Christmas Eve. And so just, I'm curious, there's a couple of things for our small talk here. I want to know, number one, I want to know, what is your favorite Christmas dish that you like to eat this time of the year? Your holiday dish, the favorite holiday dish that you eat every year, or that you could eat every year at Christmas.
Well, mine's changed this year because my daughter is back from England and she's a vegetarian. So the lovely beef tenderloin that is normally enjoyed is out the window, but we will be doing a vegetarian Wellington. But one of the accompaniments that goes with the beef tenderloin is a wonderful roast potato. So that will be enjoyed by all, and lovely roast potatoes.
Nice. Sounds delicious.
It is delicious.
Okay, so mine is more of the Christmas cookie. It's the experience of making the cookies with my daughter and granddaughter. We have a marathon baking day. And then, of course, there's nothing better than a warm chocolate chip cookie out of the oven. but it's a ritual, I guess, that we have where, we all gather and we bake like 3 or 4 different kinds of cookies in our marathon baking day. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I need to come over when y'all do that.
Right, me too.
Christmas Eve for me, I'm usually singing, so I keep Christmas Eve light with just maybe sliced roast beef and shrimp, and I do make a really good shrimp cocktail sauce, so I keep that light. And most often I'm invited to friends on Christmas Day, which is such a blessing because I'm usually extremely tired after 4 services. So I'm happy to help with dishes afterwards on Christmas Day. And food is not a big deal for me. My husband was the cook, so I just am happy to be fed and blessed with many friends.
So
that's great.
And how about you, David? Yeah.
Well, growing up, so my mother was very active in the church I grew up in. She did a lot of youth work herself for the regional churches that were in the area. And she would always host these parties. And she would make this shrimp and crab meat, cream cheese kind of it really wasn't a dip. It was just like something, and then you had cocktail sauce on top of it. I don't know what she called it, but it was the most amazing thing ever. And I could never wait. And she would only do it during December, right? I mean, like, not any other time of the year are you allowed to eat coffee. During
Do you have the
December.
recipe?
I do have it somewhere up here.
Yay, I want that recipe.
I'll definitely give it to you. It was just splendid. It was wonderful. And
So
just
who
the
makes it now? Who will make it this year? Is your mom going to make it, or are you all going to make it?
Well, I will probably have to make it this year. Mom is going to make something. She makes some butter pecan bars. And Tracy already has hit her up to make those this year. So she's going to be doing that. So we figured we would only let her worry with one thing this year instead of multiple dishes or whatever. But it's kind of funny when I think about it. Growing up, I spent all of my Christmases in Georgia on the farm, and my aunts would make certain cakes they would only make at Christmas, like an orange slice cake, or, of course, the fruit cake. They would only make it during that time of the year, and you would want it all year long, but they're not about to make this available any other time of the year. It was just wonderful. Some of the little holiday things that we all have, traditions, and that kind of stuff that we share.
And it usually involves a copious amount of butter and a copious amount of sugar.
Of course.
Whether it's savory or sweet, it's all about the butter and the Christmas. Actually, it's not. It's all about Jesus, but that's what we're here for, right?
Well, there you go. There you have it.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, our gospel text, we'll get to that. We're only going to talk about the gospel text today. And it comes to us from Luke 2. We hear it every year at Christmas or Christmas Eve. And honestly, it is probably, of the various nativity stories and accounts, the Gospel of Luke, for me, is the most heartwarming of them all. And I just love the detail that the writer of Luke's Gospel put into this narrative. One thing I always like to say about this particular passage whenever I read it, and even if I'm up talking about it to a group of people or whatever, I love the King James version of this. And it starts, Luke chapter 2, verse 1, it says, "And it came to pass," right? I love that phrase. And the reason I love that phrase is because, I take it and it helps me put life in perspective when you understand that stuff comes to pass. It doesn't come to stay. No matter what you're worrying with, dealing with, whatever condition of life you may find yourself in, you may be like Mary and Joseph in the wrong city, and something happens to force you to move to the right city, like in this passage it takes place. It comes to pass. Yeah, it may be tough, but it's not going to stay the way it is, right? That God is working and things are here today. They are gone tomorrow. Sometimes that's good stuff, but there's a whole lot of not good stuff that we need to always realize it's not always going to be like this, that there is, as some would say, another day going to dawn in your life. So I love that first part of that our text today. But anyway, that's from the King James. What are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on this? Of course, this is the story where they're in Nazareth, and they've got to get up and move to Bethlehem because the prophecy says the child is going to be born in Bethlehem. And we know that it was a census that took place. That's being described here in this passage. We know they come, there isn't any room for them in the inn. They find where they can go. We know that we have angels and shepherds. and all of that coming in together. So what are your thoughts about the text?
Well, Bingley's trying to talk a lot here, so I'm trying to keep him quiet because I do apologize
No, you're fine. And I've got some background noise here myself.
Yeah.
That's all right. Any thoughts? Come on. I know all of y'all have thoughts about this.
Well, it's definitely a story of comfort and hope. And as a child, speaking of comfort, I paid more attention to the nativity, Mary and Joseph and Jesus part than the angels and the shepherds. Although when I was a kid, I wanted more than anything to be an angel in the Christmas pageant, which I was several times.
Nice.
But the first things angels always say in the Bible is, don't be afraid.
Right.
And, immediately comforting the people that they're visiting. And so,
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know that I ever paid attention to that until I was an adult and could really kind of understand the world, not just the story.
Right.
But also how I would feel if all of a sudden I was visited.
Nice.
I agree, Mary Lou. As a child, I thought this was something adults do. So they have to, go to a different town to put their name in somewhere. It didn't make any sense to me until there was no room at the inn, and yet they still found a place.
Right.
And as I think most of the time I was an angel in the pageant, and the boys were usually the shepherds. As a baby boomer in Episcopal Church in Minneapolis, there were lots of us. There were lots of children participating in the pageant. But one year I got to be Mary, which, there's no lines. You just sit there and try not to look at the light bulb too much that's in the manger or you go blind. But
Right.
One year, my brother, who was almost 5 years older than me, he's a good over 4 years, he was one of the kings. So it just was, we got along really well growing up, but it just was a different kind of respect that went on during that pageant, that he came down the aisle and bowed at the manger and gave his gift. And when I hear this passage of Luke 2, it's just full of music. It's Christmas carols, away in a manger. It's Messiah with the angel telling them to fear not. And then the whole company of choir angels singing glory to God in the highest. So it's just a beautiful passage with so much hope and comfort and love. I just love it.
And I think also following on from what David said, there's a new book out that's being released called The Power of Regret. And it's all about how looking backward moves us forward. And I know, having traveled extensively when I was younger, it was very comforting to know one could always go back. One could always go back to that previous place and that previous life. But knowing that you could go back always helps helps move you forward and look forward to what the potential of what be. And talking about the power of regret, there's the would have, could have, should have's. You can change some of those, but you can't change all of them. So I think it's, as they were faced with that decision, they had to go and they went. There wasn't a matter of would have, could have, should have. They did it. And I think that that should help us all, help propel us forward in life as well. So, and the challenges that we face.
Yeah, I agree. That's good. Good stuff right there. Yeah, when I all of everything that you have all shared, from the fear not to hearing the music and not living with regret, and I think all of that is found here. It's a song of hope that we certainly are getting from this passage. There's probably a ton of stuff I could say about it, but I won't go through all of the stuff that I normally would point out, or that just hits me. Every year when I read it, I feel and see something new with the passage. I think it's really interesting. You know, Mary is highly favored, and her and Joseph are in the wrong city. You know, the prophecy says that out of Judah, Bethlehem Ephratah, shall he come who is to rule my people Israel. They're in the wrong city, and somehow they got to get moved from where they are to the right place to give birth and bring forth the promise of God. And what happens? There comes out a decree from Caesar Augustus, and King James says that all the world should be taxed. Of course, we know that is a registration that takes place, but it forces everyone to move. God knows how to get us to the right place. God will raise up things around us and in our life to reposition us to where we can give birth to the promises and the blessings of God that God has promised to us. And it's not an easy road from Nazareth to Bethlehem. It's a tough journey, but they remained faithful to that journey so that they could finally come to that place and bring forth the blessing and the promise of God. And then, of course, the angels and the shepherds keeping watch over their flocks by night. I could use that as a metaphor and say there's been a lot of shepherds, pastors who have been having to keep watch over the things of God in a night season. But in the midst of that night season, God shows up in glory through the messengers of the angels. And then they come and they find Mary, Joseph, and the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes. And this part I love so much. They were talking to Mary, and it says, but Mary treasured all these words and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying, praising God. Isn't it interesting that when the wise men come through, there's not a statement that Mary says, she pondered all the things the wise guys had to say. She ponders and keeps all the stuff the shepherds had to say, because only shepherds know what it's like to raise a lamb that is going to be used as a sacrifice in the worship and praise of God. And this is what Mary has to do. She has to raise this child to be given over as the life and the savior of the world. I just find that it speaks to me some there whenever I hear the voice of shepherds speaking, and you treasure those things in your heart. So that's me.
Yeah, I agree with that. That verse about Mary treasuring and pondering in her heart. You know, when I had my son, there's so many vivid memories that I still have, 40 years later about that moment, and truly treasured memories. But I believe she also says the same thing is said at the end of the story of Jesus in the temple when he's a boy, that she also pondered that time. So those special moments with our children are things we remember and we treasure more so than the gifts of the wise men, stuff, more so than stuff, words and experiences.
That's good.
So Mary Lou, following on from that, I know what you mean, but in some respects, this reading in sort of after I had my children has used to fill me with such trepidation because the girls were born in Greenwich in London, and we used to worship at the Royal Naval College Chapel that was built by Sir Christopher Wren, in the late 1700s. Beautiful, beautiful chapel, and it was only open because it was part of the Naval College. It was only open on Sundays, which is so we used to worship there. It's now part of University of Greenwich and is used in film sets from Bridgerton to whatever. Anyway, so because the girls were two of the only children that would worship there with regularity, they were asked every Christmas, to carry up the antique ceramic statues of the creche.
Mm.
And believe me, I was praying that day, but I was praying that they don't drop those statues. So, but I have such vivid memories and such fond memories of that going, oh, please God, please don't let them drop the statues. But to them, they felt so important and so wonderful to be able to carry these ceramic statues of the creche of, baby Jesus and Mary and Joseph. And it was lovely. So yes, wonderful memories, but with a little bit of trepidation.
Nice.
I think that's our pageant on this past Sunday was wonderful too, because you just know that, well, I will take a memory from that pageant as I did from my own experience, but the donkey kicking and
Yeah.
the dog dressed in sheep's clothing. I mean, these children that participated in that will hear these words differently next year. And it's so beautiful to see.
Yeah, well said.
That was a lot of fun. They did a great job this past week at the Children's Pageant. Well, I think that's all that we have time for. And we certainly thank you for joining us today on Hear These Words. And we hope that it somehow helps you become better prepared for the services on Sunday, certainly this Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, whichever service you go to worship and celebrate the birthing of Christ in the world and in our lives and in our hearts. Thank you to our staff for joining us today. And we really, really do hope and pray you have a very Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year. Thank you so much. And we'll see
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.